Go ahead.
All right, Mr. Roll, how is it going? It's been a while.
It has. How about you?
It's been good. It's been good.
I think the dad life has changed us both a little bit.
That's true. We're both, well, you're not packing the pounds, but you can't tell in the video
Whoa.
here. I'm packing the pounds on now.
Mine's all in the rear.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you're going to be able to stand up and show the camera, but we don't want that anyway.
I was
So
gonna say, probably not.
we'll pass. Yeah, dad life. How's dad life?
It's good. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah.
I'm learning to everything.
Are you learning to slow down at all?
It's hard. I definitely think the hardest part, the sleep isn't as big of an issue for me. Like everybody freaks out about. Like,
Yeah.
I barely sleep as it is, but the managing expectations thing is incredible. And when I say that, I mean like my expectations, my wife's expectations of what she thinks I can get done during the day. Because my wife, of course, wants me to spend time with her and the baby, and of course I do too. But it's hard when you're the one working still and coming home and still getting stuff done. And, I've always had a flexible job. So just coming home left and right. And then honestly, the biggest expectation to manage outside of the family is the customers.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like, I try my best. Customer first, customers right, all that stuff. Get them stuff as fast as they can. But I've definitely learned to push things to the next day.
Well, yeah, and that's hard to do when your reputation is like so important because you're like, oh, same with being a realtor, which I'm not really active much anymore, but it's like, someone texts you on a Sunday afternoon, you're like, I'm spending time with my family, but you're like, I got to do it, got to drop this, go show the house, go drop the dumpster, got to keep the people happy. Yeah,
the big thing is equipment on the weekend because everybody wants to get their projects done over the weekend equipment-wise. And so even as simple as, hey, I can't get this warning light to go off on the equipment, and it's like, oh, you gotta idle up and let it go, and they're sitting there waiting for you to make that reply.
Yeah. Or
a lot of people that don't own a business, or they just kind of watch you, you're always on your phone, and like, what are you doing? Like, I'm working. But they're getting a dumpster. It's like, no, but they will. And they don't realize that response, that immediate response from me could be thousands of dollars later down the line.
A relationship that you're building.
Yeah.
So backing up real quick, I think most people who have watched my channel or maybe watch yours know who you are, know what you do. But let's just I want to take a step back on this episode and kind of encompass everything that you've kind of done to where you are right now, which I think that we met back in 8th grade, probably
time ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Little squirts.
I don't even want to know how many years ago that actually was. What's the math on that? I'm not even going to try.
We're
to do
28.
Yeah, that's a long time
grade,
ago.
A long time ago.
So your mom was actually my 8th grade literacy teacher, I believe. I think.
Sorry.
Yeah. She's the one that is probably or hated to have me as a student because I was not good.
She probably doesn't remember Kyle.
Probably not. Probably had hundreds.
The amount of kids that walk up to her at the grocery store, Mrs. Roll, she's like, hi,
I
honey.
have no idea who you are.
My gosh, it's so great to see you. Walk away.
Yeah.
Who's that?
How's life?
I know. I have no idea.
Okay, so backing up, so you just want to give people an idea of who you are, and then give them the idea or show them kind of the inside of your business today. Because
I'm a nobody.
I have a lot of people that are interested in what you do, which a lot of you who are watching this probably found me through. I at one point in time uploaded a video of Clayton's dumpster business that he owns,
viral,
and it went pretty viral on YouTube. So there's definitely a lot of people that are interested in that business. And
that is the most watched dumpster video on YouTube. And I think you made 3 of them. And all 3 of them,
they all popped off.
And they're higher than there's dozens of guys who make dumpster content.
Yeah.
And you make real estate content.
Yep.
And somehow your 3 or so videos are the highest trending dumpster videos.
I don't know. It must just be you. It's that jump, right?
Oh, the jump onto the dumpsters that everybody focuses on?
Yeah, Clayton will leap onto the side of a dumpster and it kind of looks like he's floating.
I'm
and
a dad now.
Yeah, you don't do that anymore.
I can't pull that stunt.
But okay, backing up. So we both ran track and cross country. After high school, you went to, was it St. Louis for college?
Yeah, moved to St. Louis, went to Webster University of all places. I wrapped that up as fast as I could.
Which they focus a lot on blue collar, like hardworking dudes, right?
No, it's a pretty liberal arts school.
So kind of the opposite of what you're doing today.
Quite the opposite. When I was there for marketing and advertising, or at least that's what I finished as.
Yeah.
And I did it in 4 years, which is pretty unique there because a lot of people do like study abroad, which it seems like always put people almost 6 months to a year behind. And so as tempting as it was, because they really encourage it. It's like, are you going to Thailand this year? Are you going to, Europe? And I'm like, no, I'm going to go get a job. That's all I was focused on.
So what did you do job wise through college?
So for college, I worked as like a student representative for the school for a long time. So I what did they used to call that? SBA, or I don't know. I used to give tours a lot. So that actually, if anything that actually opened me up as a person, was learning to give tours to a bunch of college students, telling them what they wanted to hear, and then turning around and telling the parents what they wanted to hear, because those are totally different things. You got to learn
the sales,
who
you're talking to.
That honestly, I don't think people realize the people giving those tours are the college's biggest salespeople, honestly, because the kids only want certain things.
Yep.
That's all they care about.
My wife's younger sister just had a college tour, and I remember her commenting, or like, Devin's mom commenting, like, the person that was giving the tour was not great. And it's like, if you're not there selling it, like that's like the front face of your company right there.
Yeah. There were a lot of students that I gave tours to that the next year, and I only did that for like my first 2 years, and then I ended up doing something else. But it was amazing to me how many of them came up to me afterwards and were just like,
hey, I remember you.
Yeah, I remember you were my tour guide. You're definitely the reason I'm here. And if the school knew the type of questions that I was answering, because usually what I would do is I'd show the parents the dorms, let them walk through. They would kind of do like their interior tour, and then I would just quickly turn to some of the students that were there more for their parents, and I'd be like, all right, so what do you really want to know?
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed what the questions were. So you really have to learn to play the room. That opened me up. But outside of that, the thing that set me apart the most in college was never my classes. I felt like I was at a community college, honestly, because I took very easy classes, things I probably could have taught myself.
You were running too at the same time, right?
Yeah, I was running cross country and track. So, I was running mostly track in college. And my biggest thing was I just, wanted to get in and out of college. Didn't really want to go. I didn't want to go to college in the first place.
Which I feel like those years, kind of after high school, you and I, for a while, kind of like we didn't really keep up with each other a whole lot.
Pretty much right when we got done, or I got done.
Yeah.
Which seemed to be when we touched base.
Yeah, it's interesting because then, so after you graduated college, then you stayed in St. Louis for a while, right?
I stayed in St. Louis, so I got. I did internships throughout college, which then led into a decent job at Monsanto, now Bayer.
Oh,
the evil Monsanto that used to poison our food. So Bayer does that now. But anyway, I was there, got a decent job, and I immediately turned around. I think you were the one who convinced me, or at least we talked about it. I was like, I should house hack. And I said, well, what's a house hack? Because I had talked to you before about how I really wanted to buy property, and you're like, you should do a house hack. And then I got my first duplex in St. Louis.
What year was that? You graduated high school. We graduated high school in 2012. You graduated college 4 years later.
2016. I bought the house the first week of 2017 or the last week of 2016. Because it was pretty immediate. Because I had a choice. I was like, I can go back home.
And you had just wads of cash in your pocket at that point in time, right?
Nothing.
So when you bought that house,
I bought that house 3.5% down on an FHA loan. It never should have passed inspection. Looking back on it,
I have no idea how it passed inspection. I'm a realtor, and I have done FHA loans. I don't know how that passed.
That upstairs, beautiful. Everything worked. Everything was good. Downstairs, hot water heater. The gas company wouldn't turn on because it was not functioning.
Yep.
The
windows were leaking.
The windows were leaking
everywhere.
The floor, I'm pretty sure, was asbestos, or they called it asbestos tile. I don't think this one in particular was, but it had that same look to it. What else? Hot water heater. I already said the hot water heater.
That's
air conditioner didn't work. I had internal air in that unit, and it didn't even work. So I ended up busting out a window and putting in a window unit. Although it didn't matter because it was December. or in January when it happened. So the best part was I went without hot water for 6 months.
Yeah. So, I mean, with FHA, everything has to be functioning.
Everything is supposed
and
to.
There can't be peeling paint because I had an experience where I sold a house that had peeling paint on the windows, and for it to pass FHA inspections, we had to go scrape every window. And
I think the only reason it might have passed was because it was listed online and everything as a single family, and I think the downstairs was considered a mother-in-law suite at the time.
Well,
but nobody seemed to notice that like it was metered separately and everything. But you're right, it still shouldn't have it shouldn't have passed.
But anyway, so yeah, because at that point in time I had lived in St. Louis. I'd moved down.
Yeah, you were down by the airport.
Yeah
I remember.
You were down.
Yes, you're right.
But I was there, and yeah, I was doing the same thing, house hacking, which explain a little bit more what house hacking is.
So yeah, it's just basically you buy a place, you live in one part of it, and you rent out the other. And if you're lucky, the other pays a large majority of what your mortgage would be. They pay that in rent. And in my case, that was a super solid buy because they ended up paying more in rent than I paid in my mortgage, even after only a 3.5% down payment. Granted, though, I remember distinctly when I closed on that house, I had less, like it was like $75 or $74 in my bank account. And the next immediate thing I did was I went and got a credit card, only so I would have emergency money in case the tenants, because within like 4 days of owning that property, I'd already rented the upstairs out. I had painted it the day I closed. I painted 2 of the rooms, cleaned it up, patched up some walls with my dad actually came and visited me, and he kind of had a "what did you do" moment where he's like looking at
multiple of those with you, right?
He definitely has. But once he did, I owe him for that one. Solid 8-12 hours of work that day. That place looked really nice. I mean, it was cleaned up.
Was nice. Had that spiral staircase.
Yeah, it's very unique, which was pretty much the main reason everybody moved out was because they realized they had to carry their laundry up that staircase.
Yeah. I think if most people watching this understood the environment that you were living in for that point in time when you were living, like house hacking that unit, like they'd be like, what? Because you were living, I mean, it was a construction site, and it was like
construction site for like 6 months or 8 months,
and it was small. Like we're talking what, like 350 square feet.
This room plus a kitchen. I mean, that's really all it was.
Yeah, it was like probably 350, maybe a little bit bigger, 425, maybe
400.
Yeah, because my apartments here are 425, and it's bigger than what you were.
Oh, significantly, yeah.
And your shower,
and the ceilings were like, I swear, only 7 feet tall instead of like your typical 8.
It was short.
It was right at your head.
It was a dungeon down there, and you were also showering in, like you said, no hot
freezing
water
cold.
For a while.
For a while, I would go out to I'd take a super cold fast shower, get my hair clean, and then I would make it a point to work out in the day. That's probably the thing that made me work out the most, was because I just wanted to take a hot shower at the gym.
So you got the duplex. You're working at Monsanto. At some point in time, I know you switched jobs to like marketing.
Then I ended up working at Brown Smith Wallace, which is a CPA company. I worked for them, and then I'm pretty much like ready to go. Angela, my now wife, is starting to get to that point where she's going to be doing residency, and she goes, I really want to go to Springfield, Missouri. And I'm like, okay. So
all right. Just finished the duplex.
I know. Literally, I had just got to the point where that duplex was enjoyable to be in, and my original game plan was once the people upstairs move out, we're on like the second group of people. I've been there over a year now. Second group, once they move out, her and I could move up to that section and just rent the downstairs. Granted, I'm not going to make as much income, but I mean, we're saving.
A more comfortable place to live.
Yeah, more comfortable place, and we're going to save a lot. We would both have good jobs. But then when she said this, she went and did this residency in Springfield and fell in love. And she had worked in St. Louis doing residencies there, so she knew what she had option-wise there. But when she went to Springfield, she fell in love with the hospital she worked at, and then said, I want to move here. They offered me a job. I went, all right. So that's when it got interesting. So honestly, probably the best thing that ever actually happened to me financially was that when she did that, I just started doing research because I didn't know. I was like, I have to go there now. I have to get a job. And then I am like so anti-rent that I was like, I need to figure out how to buy a house.
Yep.
Because she was living in an apartment because it was only supposed to be short term. And I think she was on like a 1-year lease, and she'd already done her residency. Now we're going to transition into, a full-time job, but at this point now we're getting near the end of the lease.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm going to buy a house. So I realized, though, after talking to a couple of lenders, if I bought an FHA property in St. Louis and I moved, I think it's 100 miles away, and especially if it was for relocating because of work, you can buy another FHA property at 3.5%. And I never really thought it was going to work. I was like, there's got to be more hoops to jump through than that. So I kept the place in St. Louis. As I'm literally carrying my last load of stuff out, I'm moving another guy in. I hand him the keys and I get in the truck.
Larry?
Yeah, Larry. His name was Larry. Yeah, good. Yeah, well, it was weird because he lived here in Quincy but was working in St. Louis.
Yep.
Really weird how that worked out. But I literally handed him the keys and I jumped into my 1998 Ford Ranger. Yeah.
Oh, you had a Ranger back then.
I had a Ford Ranger with a like a welded on bumper that some kid welded on to the front of it as so he could pass his high school welding class.
Yep.
I mean, it was literally just a piece of metal, and it was missing a gear, but the rest of it worked. And I drove that thing all the way to Springfield, which 3-4 hours, loaded down. I mean, that thing squatting. It was so bad. And I had my dog in the seat and all of his stuff's piled behind me. And
so you guys, when you moved there, did you move into the apartment or did you, because you at one point then you bought the duplex in Springfield.
I lived in the apartment with her. I got a remote job out of Colorado, which when I was moving, I was probably applying to 20 places a day. And not just I mean, I was great resumes, making everything look good. I wasn't just banging them out through LinkedIn. I'm taking the time. And I came across one, which I never thought I would have got. I submitted it and he even called me and he said, I really don't want you for this position, but I want you for this one. Flies me out to Colorado. Coolest interview I've ever had because I had an interview with this guy on a ski mountain.
That's fun.
So we went skiing and spent the day, and I'm literally falling asleep in the car because this is a 24-hour trip. I went up there at 4 a.m., flew up. I wore a suit just in case, and then I packed ski gear because I was like, there's no way this dude's he is in full on ski gear, ski stuff on the top. And I said, I'm just going to rent some stuff. I don't know what he expected me to show up with. Right. But then I went and rented some stuff and then went up the mountain. We came back. I turned my stuff in, and I really didn't know. I couldn't really gauge what he wanted, but we had really good conversations.
What was his business?
He provided continuing education for CPAs.
Okay.
So that's how they got their CPA
so which is
credits.
Probably why he had interest in you is because you worked at Brown Smith
Wallace. At a Brown Smith Wallace, which is a CPA firm, and I just had experience with Salesforce and marketing in general, and that's. It checked a lot of the boxes he wanted for a separate position than what I applied for.
So then you worked that job remote in Springfield, just out of your home?
Out of my house, which was even better for my taxes because I basically had a designated office inside of a duplex, which I'm already, cashing in on the benefits of that. So I worked for him, and it paid very well for a 25-year-old at that time. And it did. It paid very nicely. But the workload, it was 8 dudes doing quite a bit of work. And, to him, he was still figuring everything out too. I get it. It was definitely the most challenging job I ever had because everybody was in a different time zone. And I would take my computer to the bathroom because I couldn't, there were courses going on. So we're doing our job where we're managing marketing, we're managing a database, we're doing all this on one screen, and then on another screen the continuing education is happening.
So you're monitoring these live classroom Zoom
they're
meetings?
Zooms, and this is before COVID, so this is before working from home is cool, before people are doing classes online. As weird as that sounds, only 2 years before.
COVID
and
probably blew his business up.
Blew it up. I think he doubled. I kind of looked back a couple months ago, and I think he's tripled his staff, which is great. It needed to happen before that, but I think he was just working through the details of what everybody did. But I got to the point where it was too much for me personally because I knew what I wanted to do there, but then just more stuff kept getting piled on, and it's mostly because COVID happened. And you got to take the time to teach new employees this and then still manage your own workload. It was too much. And the biggest thing was I'd be getting on at 6:30 to get ahead.
Yep.
Right? I'm getting ahead of my workload. And then another guy in a different time zone is getting on at 7, 8, and then 9. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. You know, it's 4 or 5 o'clock. I'm going to get off. And then somebody goes, hey, do you have a minute? And that minute then turns into you getting off at 7 o'clock. So you're working 6 to 7 like every day. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I remember us talking through that period of time, and I just remember, you know, my perspective was like you were stuck. It was like a jail cell. Your computer was a jail cell. Like you were stuck at your desk all the time.
My wife would get home from work and she'd be like, oh, let's like sit in, get a movie, get a pizza. And I'm like, I'm leaving. I didn't know anybody in Springfield, but my only escape was going to the gym. Mm-hmm. And that was the absolute truth. Go to the gym, get a good workout. Really didn't talk to anybody except for maybe hey, hello, whatever. Yep. And then I left, came back, and then I was in a better mood. But then sometimes I'd come back to emails. We're like talking 8, 9 o'clock, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. So this is torture.
I want you to back up just a little bit. So back to you buying this duplex. There's a little bit of a story behind that, just like how crazy you are. You found this duplex for sale. You're going to buy it with an FHA loan. Again, FHA has certain requirements. It has to be up to certain standards. This one was not. So talk about that situation, how you went
Needless to
through
say, it was definitely not up to standard. Just like everything else that I buy, it needs work.
Yeah.
And this one in particular, the biggest thing he needed, I was like, I will go do the FHA guidelines. And I think we had a handrail, some locks on the windows, a broken window pane, which I took care of, siding holes, roof siding holes, or the siding had holes in it. And I literally just a pass inspection slapped some kind of like waterproof tape on it and they passed it, which is just a joke.
It is kind of a joke.
Yeah, I was like, it's done. It looks terrible, but I'll come back later and peel that off and fix it the right way, but so we can pass. But the big one was the roof.
Yeah.
The roof, it needed a whole new roof. And this is a long roof. I want to say it was like something like 80 square. It was a massive roof.
Most people have no idea what that means.
It was a big long, so the duplex wasn't like stacked 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. It was one big long 2-bedroom, 2-bath, yep. Like, separate kitchen, separate living space. It was a sizable duplex. And they were side by side. So it made for a long roof, but an easy roof to install.
Yeah.
And when I say easy, I mean easy for a friend. And I called up a buddy and I was like, hey, what is the chance that you can drive 4 hours out here with a couple of your friends and help me put this roof on? And I'll pay you what I can. And I did. And I feel like I paid him okay. But I mean, in all honesty, I still owe him to this day. Like for just taking the time to do it.
Most people don't understand the fact that like you don't do this typically, like where, because he hasn't bought the property yet and he's spending thousands of dollars on it just in hopes that it passes inspection, in hopes that you get across the finish line.
Yeah. So what I worked out with the owner was he paid for the material.
Okay.
And I bring the crew to fix the roof up to the company standard or the loan standard. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did. So I called my buddy and I bought all the stuff, which of course what the guy wrote me the check for didn't cover all the stuff, and not even close. So I ended up forking up a bunch of cash on top of that, plus paying my buddies to install it, all in the hopes that the closing goes through, because at the point that we did all that work, he could have gone, you know what? I think I'm going to list it for more now. Here's a check.
Seriously,
here's a small check for your work.
Did you sign like anything?
No, nothing. It was literally a handshake.
Hey, that's the way it should be, but unfortunately, that's not the way it happens anymore.
And I was really afraid after it was done. It's like, did I just call my buddy for the biggest favor I've ever asked for this to turn around and shoot me in the face?
So that was unit number 2, or that was unit number 4. You closed. You had 2 units in St. Louis, and then 2 units in Springfield. Now tell me about going through this. Then you bought another house.
I did. I bought another house in Springfield, which was a disaster.
A flip house. And I remember you showing it to me, and I was like,
that was the one where we talk about my dad.
Yeah.
That was the one my dad showed up day before closing because he, just come to visit. And I showed him what I was buying. And as we walk up to the back door, it had a broken window and then somebody tried to drill through the lock because they were trying to get into this abandoned building because it was for sale. And he's like, dude, you could back out right now.
Yeah.
Like, you just, what do you lose? Like, what do you have down on this?
And that was before you even got inside, right?
And we hadn't even gotten inside yet. So we get inside, and I think something else was really bad about it. Oh,
well, everything was bad about it.
Yeah, the floor. Somebody had installed a shower and cut all the floor joists below in the basement. And I thought to myself, I was like, even when walking through that place, I didn't get an inspection, of course. Looking at it, I'm like, this isn't good.
Like
I was
40
walking.
grand house or something.
I want to say it was still 60 or 80 grand. It was still, I paid more than anybody ever should have for it. That was a just above break even house.
Yep. Because
I did all the work. I think what was really upsetting about that house was I did all that work, and I mean, it turned out really nice. For what it was, let's just say that. Painted the exterior of that place. I redid the floors in that place. I redid some ceilings.
That's the part
I remember. That was a bad one. I literally jacked up a ceiling as it's falling, and then built like a deck frame upside down, and then ran metal sheets, which made it look like antique.
He put metal barn like roof sheeting on the ceiling in the living room. Like, here's
the worst part though.
It
didn't look terrible, but the floor joists were so messed up in the place that as I'm jacking up the ceiling, the floor is getting compressed. So I had to like go downstairs and re-sister all the floor joists. I mean, I got to the place to the point that it was like pretty level, pretty safe, pretty, good to go. And it cleaned up really nice for a rental. And then I had a tenant that turned out to be a compulsive liar and brought in like 5 dogs. And I was pulling teeth to get paid every month. And I did, for the most part, get paid every month. But it was always like at the end of the month, leading into the next month, I'm not going to get paid, till the end of that month. Yeah. And it got so bad to the point I started reaching out to her boyfriend, he's like, wait, she hasn't paid you yet? Because I paid her. And that mess just got worse and worse. So I lost out on like 2 months rent, maybe 3 months, but that wasn't the bad part. It was coming back to the place being destroyed.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah. So nobody understands, like, because they're like, oh, landlords are terrible people, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. They only work once or twice a year. They truly don't get it, because I went into that place and I was devastated that I put so much money and time. Even Angela, who really, my wife, does not work on my properties a lot. I try to really keep her out of my business, not because I don't want her to be a part of it or I don't trust her to be a part of it. It's more like, you have your job, I have my job. These should be my problems. Yep. And she came in and she like redid the countertops. She did this really cool concrete countertop deal, and it turned out really cool. I mean, these people just ruined everything.
So frustrating.
So it turned out.
Were you still working your job?
I was still working my job. So this was all like, which, talk about putting a stress on any relationship. Any woman or man who can stand by somebody that is working a full-time job and then turn around and then, I mean, no joke. Even when we lived in one unit, I mean, I was sometimes getting done with work and then working on our own unit just so it was more livable. But I'd be working from, 7 o'clock at night to sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, then getting up at 6 to start working again. That puts a stress on anybody. Yeah. And that's just when I was there. At least
you didn't have kids.
Exactly. That's why I tried to do it all then. Sorry, yeah. I'm thinking back on it. There's been a little PTSD from back then.
I mean, again, like, we weren't super close because you were living, 4 hours away. Like, we weren't talking all the time, but I just remember you being like stressed out. And I remember seeing this house you're flipping. I'm like, I flipped houses before, and I wouldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. That's what I remember.
Yeah, it was rough.
But somehow you made it work, like you always have, and you ended up selling it, right?
Yeah, I ended up selling that one and the duplex pretty simultaneously, which really hurt
Springfield?
me. Both in Springfield.
Okay.
I sold those before I sold.
St.
So
Louis.
To kind of backtrack a little bit, while I'm flipping that house is kind of how I got into dumpsters, totally on accident.
And that's what I wanted to end on, or really talk about, like, how you got interested in that.
So we got that rental property, and I remembered how much I had paid for the dumpster for the roof in Springfield, and I was like, man, I need like 10 of those for this house. Yeah. Like, this is insane. And I came across this trailer that also acted as a dumpster. Like, it rolled off, and then you can roll it back on. I was like, maybe I'll get one of those, and then I'll get another one later, and I'll just rent it out a little bit, and then maybe turn around and sell it. Get my money out of it, and then sell it to somebody else. Well, that didn't go as planned. So I bought it.
Didn't you see someone with one or something?
I saw someone with something similar, but then it was almost as I was going to the trailer place to buy just a regular dump trailer. Mm-hmm. And I'd bought a truck. I kind of knew that I needed a truck at this point. Just bought a truck. Then I headed to get this dump trailer so I can use it for my own stuff. And then this idea started spinning in my head where I was like, I could rent out some of those dumpsters when I'm not using them. I got my money's worth out of it right away. And I couldn't afford any of this. So I went out and got another credit card. And this is probably my second one at the time, but it was 0% interest for 18 months. I had really good credit at this time, just based on everything I
don't know how.
done. Yeah, I know. Done leading up to it. I was really on top of all my stuff, and I think I got like, it was like 12 or 15,000. I think it might have been 15,000 approved. And I bought the trailer and the dumpster, or most of that, on that credit card. And I had 18 months to pay it off. And I probably paid that off in 6 months or less because I was renting out that dumpster on the side, which then I just fed all that money right back into the credit card. And I went, well, I'm going to go get another dumpster because I still got, 12 months.
Do you remember did you start out with with a big dumpster? Is it 14?
I started with a little 14-yard dumpsters, and then I got into the 20s actually when I left Springfield. After I sold all those properties, I actually tried to manage those from here in Quincy for a while. And that got to the point where I'm like, oof, if somebody offered me money to buy these, I'd probably sell them. Market starts going up. My realtor that sold me the properties reached out and said, hey, you have any interest in selling these? I got somebody looking for a duplex. And I'm like, sell them.
Yeah, done. I'm done.
Let's do it.
So you were still living in Springfield when you got this dumpster idea. You start buying the equipment, start renting it out. You'd created a website, started a Google presence.
So I went like full on everything I learned in marketing.
Yep.
I just started dumping it into the trash business. And the biggest thing that I started to notice was I was doing everything that the trash companies weren't, because they were so used to getting their business because they were the only ones around.
Yep.
And there was a couple other guys who were doing it in Springfield, because Springfield's significantly larger than Quincy. And I just started doing everything I noticed they weren't. And I could just tell that renting a dumpster for people has always been such a pain, because the people are rude, because they always know you're calling and you have to have it because they're the only ones who can give it, and the price is the price. There's no negotiation. There's the only way to get them to bring you a dumpster is to call them. You can't order it online. And then when you call them, they usually don't pick up the first few times. I mean, all these just little things that they're missing out on in terms of just customer service. And I just tried my best to streamline that, and it worked out all right, I guess.
And then, so you started getting traction on this, and then at that point, you guys had decided to...
We're moving back
to hometown, good old Quincy.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, uh-oh, like, had this thing growing.
Yeah, so I had this growing, and I only had a few dumpsters at this time. I'm telling you, the week before I left. So going on to, like, your presence and how important it is in any company, I had somebody call me who had the same exact setup, same exact dumpsters as I did. So everything would transition over very flawlessly. He offered to sell me, I believe he had like 30 to 40 dumpsters from what I understood, and 2 trailers. And he's like, hey man, I see you all over the place. My son actually told me about you. He's like, I got another company. It's way more profitable and it takes off. I just kind of need out. I need to focus on one. I can't do both. Would you be interested in buying? And
you're like, well, I'm leaving.
Probably
would.
I probably would have if I could have found a way to buy it, because I knew that he was doing well. How many credit
cards can we max out?
I know, exactly, to buy this place or buy this setup. He was doing really well. He was the guy in town. That was the cool part about it. It's like I knew he was doing well. I knew he had good connections. Something he was doing, so I just started asking him questions. He helped me out a lot. He probably would never even remember talking to me, honestly, because I know he sold it to somebody else later. So he probably doesn't even remember the conversation.
That person
but it
may
really
or may
did
not be watching your videos now.
He might be. Who knows?
Yeah.
But once that conversation happened and I realized the growth potential of it, I originally thought to myself when we were leaving, I was like, I'll probably just sell all this stuff. I really don't want to take it all the way back home, 4 or 5 hours. I'm going to have to make multiple trips to come get this stuff. Like, I just don't know if there's a market for this back home. And then I started looking, and there was a much better sustainable market for me back home. And also just the fact that people were already asking me, are you going to rent these out when you come back to Quincy? And I started like kind of thinking about it, and I started running the numbers, and I'm like, the profit margin isn't, believe it or not, as high in Quincy as it was when I was in Springfield. But the market opportunity for me was because I had so much connection there
Yep.
because I just left this town, like in high school, and that was all I knew, and that's all people remembered me as. Coming back, and all the people that you went to high school with are still here. All the family members that you grew up around are still here. And in Springfield, I knew nobody. I knew my wife and my wife's coworkers. That was it. And so I really started to put pencil to paper and figure out like how I could really grow the business once I got back.
Now, did you quit your job before you came back to Quincy, or was that after?
It was very shortly after. So I came back, and it just kind of got to the point. It's like, I need to make a decision here. I cannot work these hours and still try to do this little side hustle I got going, because I knew that side hustle was always going to be a side hustle unless I made the leap. Kind of like you said, when I bought my first duplex, the hardest thing to do is just make the jump. Like, you'll never grow. You'll never make that like progress if you don't make that first jump. After that, I swear, after buying that first duplex and after I quit my job, that was like that momentum where it was, okay, I'm falling. Now I need to land on something soft.
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference. You had to succeed after that. So that was the big step for me, was I quit that job. And then I guess I can't say I really took a solid jump the first time. I won't lie and say, yeah, I just jumped. I quit my great paying job. I then became a mortgage lender.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yep. So I became a mortgage lender and said, you know what, I'll sell some houses on the side. But that got to the point where, I hit the market hard. That was actually really convenient.
You timed, the market was doing very well at that point in time, right?
Exactly. Loans were coming to me without me trying,
Rates
which was
were falling.
Perfect. Yep.
And people were refinancing.
That's where the money was.
Yep.
The refinances was the easiest sale in the world of anything I've ever done, selling dumpsters, trying to get kids to go to college, whatever you want to say. Selling somebody on a refinance is just insanely easy. Hey, do you want to pay less for your house and save thousands of dollars over the course of 30 years?
And all you have to do is...
And your monthly payment goes down?
Right.
And all you have to do is sign these papers and let me see your tax returns? Yeah, sure. Okay. So we, did dozens of those. And then once the market started going back up, I started focusing a lot harder on the dumpsters.
On the dumpster stuff.
Yeah.
What's the name of your business?
Rolling Operations. Have we gotten this far into me rambling and I haven't said that?
I don't think we've talked about it. Yeah. So rolling ops for short. So you have some people have asked what the logo is, which I don't know if people can see in the camera. Turn and get close to the camera.
It's an armadillo.
I don't know if it's going to focus. Maybe.
No.
Okay. Well, maybe it's an armadillo.
It's not an orange peel. It's not a Pokemon.
It works out because your last name is Roll.
Yeah. I wanted to pick the trashiest animal that was rolling.
Love it. So that's the thing that I don't think a lot of people remember is like you have this marketing degree. You marketed with Brown Smith Wallace, and then that remote learning,
Monsanto, and all that remote learning. Yeah.
So how important do you think it is for small businesses, especially in a community like ours, where it's a lot of like mom and pop, like businesses have been around forever? How important is it that these people like get on Google and are like optimizing search engines or the SEO and all that?
So much more important than people realize. The worst part is about small businesses is people get sold and taken advantage of so much by marketers. Yeah, you've got a lot of companies that are like, I'll build you a website. It's going to cost you $5,000, and then I'm going to manage your SEO, and it's going to cost you $100 to $300 a month for me to do that.
Yeah, it's really complicated.
Yeah, it's really complicated. You don't want to do it.
Do you know how to code?
Yeah, exactly. And websites nowadays are drag and drop. SEO is incredibly manageable on your own, and honestly, the amount of people who start companies that manage your SEO and all they do is tweak something when you call, and then they still continue to charge you $100 to $300 a month to do absolutely nothing is incredible. I know people
sounds like
personally
a business we should get into.
I have had so many people ask me if I could build them a website for their dumpster business, and I usually turn them away and I say, but please don't fall victim to this because it is so common.
I'm sure there's guys that have add value in that space.
Absolutely. And some people just don't want to touch it, but that doesn't mean they should be getting taken advantage of either.
Yeah, because that's something I think that you've done really well is, Google, you Google dumpsters in this area, and you pop up,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's so important. Just like the overall brand.
Yeah, because you got to realize it's not 1980 anymore. There's no phone book with the yellow pages. It's like when you need something,
Mm-hmm.
they don't say Yahoo it, they don't say Bing it, they don't say look it up in the phone book. They say go Google it.
Yep.
So if you're not showing up there, that is your biggest mistake as a small business.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually just talking about this in a previous video, and and my biggest focus was branding. It's like, if you want to separate yourself from mom and pop or just the one-off individual, you need to focus on a brand and stop. And one guy in the comments said, yeah, I refer to those guys as Chuck in a truck. And I was like, oh, that's such a good example. It's the guy with a lawn business, and it's his name on the side of the truck. Or
there's a local. Well, I shouldn't. Yeah, there's like guys.
There's
local.
all kinds of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's bad to name your company after your name or your last name or whatever, first name. But at the same time, you need to create a brand along with that. Mm-hmm. You just can't be that and then just let that be what drives people to want to be part of your business.
Yep.
Because Facebook isn't designed to let you succeed by telling people what your daily deals are or what your weekly deal is or what your weekly giveaway is. Nobody cares. And the chance that you are going to get that 1% of people to engage with you and then also cash in on your offer at that particular time is so low.
So what I'm hearing you say, I mean, because we've kind of talked about this a little bit, or I've heard you talk about it. It's almost like you want your brand to be more of a story and less of this is all that I offer. Like, here's my specials today.
Yeah.
And that's all you're posting. It's more of like sharing the story of your business, your brand, who we are, what we do.
Being incredibly transparent with your customers is awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can show them what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yeah. An example.
That's it.
Example, and you do this very thing, but so I had some asphalt sealed at one of my properties a couple years ago, and the first thing I did is Google asphalt sealing, whatever, and I got a list of companies. The one that I clicked on, shout out to Bates Asphalt I think they're out of Hannibal, where they on their Facebook page, like once a week at least, he was uploading a video of them doing a job. Yeah. And like everyone else is like literally just like a number on Google to call. And just the fact that I was able to like, oh, these are real people. I see what they're doing.
It looks like they're doing it right.
Yeah. Like I called them and, gave them $7,000 in my business. So it's like really matters for a business like what you're in.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, how do you sell dumpsters to somebody? A lot of people just think that, I mean, first off, you want to be where people search. Like if you're not showing up on Google, it's already a hard sell. But outside of that, you need to create an experience that people want to be a part of. That's the only reason you wear certain clothing that represents a brand. Like Coca-Cola sells a lot of t-shirts. Why? Why do people want to wear or represent the Coca-Cola brand? Like, why does that matter? And it's because people want to be a part of that brand.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, is if you can actually connect with people and want them to be a part and give you their money to be a part of your brand and your experience because you seem to be doing things right, clean, efficiently, and better than somebody else, that's it. And there's levels to, or there's stages of like advertising and marketing and branding, and this like brand awareness. There's here I am in a blank. You got brand awareness, brand identity, and brand recognition. I'm going to say that's pretty close. Okay. And they're completely different things. And if people can't identify your brand, they're never going to, that's the first thing. You want people to identify your brand. When I'm driving down the road and they see an armadillo, I want them to be like, oh, that's Rolling Operations. Think of all of the company symbols that you see on a daily basis, but you don't have to see the name underneath of it to know what it is.
Like the easiest thing to think of is like the Apple logo. Like you just know that's Apple.
That's Apple.
Or the little Android, little robots. Like I know that's Android.
And that should be a huge focus for a company. It's like you want people to identify your logo without having to have a name underneath of it. That way, when just like a half a clip of something comes up and you see it out of the corner of your eye, or something drives down the road that looks unique, like if I'm hauling a mini excavator down the road, nobody knows that I rent a mini excavator, but they see an armadillo on the side of it, they might go, oh, I wonder if he rents those out too, Like that is so important. And So then you got the brand identifying it, the brand recognition, and then that transitions into people just continuing to talk about what you're doing or why they used you, or, it's a lot better to somebody say, oh yeah, I use rolling operations for this project than, oh yeah, who's that guy in that truck that brought me that thing at one time? I don't think I saved his number in my phone. I don't know if you can Google him or not.
Yeah.
You don't want to be that guy for so long. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be that company eventually.
Because eventually, and we've talked a lot about this, like as you scale your business, like sure it's like your baby at the beginning, and like you are doing everything. You're delivering the dumpsters, you're taking the phone calls, you're doing the accounting. But eventually, if you want it to be a company and grow it, like you have to start taking yourself out and plugging other people in. And if you're not growing it correctly from day one, it's just gonna be so much harder to do that.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about next is like, so kind of like you came back to Quincy, you had a couple dumpsters that you were running. You had you bought a Cummins, right? At that point,
I bought
a flatbed.
I got rid of a clapped
Ford.
out Ford,
The thing
and
was rough.
the way I traded that in, we won't discuss. It barely made it to the place I traded it in on, and then somehow it miraculously survived the test drive that the guy did.
Oh man, don't talk about that.
Yeah, that was a low moment.
You don't know who's listening to this.
I know.
So you upgraded your equipment. At what point in time were you like, okay, let's like expand this thing? Like I'm going to make this a real business, because it started truly as a side hustle, and then I would say like today it's like it's your thing. Like
you start to really realize like you can keep this a side hustle and it'll probably slowly fail, and I'll get tired of it, or you can go all in and really focus on growing it.
Yeah,
I mean that's it. Well, side hustles are great until everything starts to break and you're not making enough income to support the repairs, the employees, the stress. I mean, it adds up very quickly.
So what's so interesting is the YouTube video that popped off about you was like literally labeled like side hustle.
It's because everybody wants it.
Everyone's obsessed with side hustles where they can make quick, easy cash, right?
And you could. I mean, you know what? Honestly, at the end of the day, I could have done the side hustle for like a year, broke all my equipment, and then turned around and probably made a small profit. Would it have been worth it? Would you have been probably cutting a bunch of corners? Yes. Would it have been worth it? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you have to be all in at some point. It can't be a side hustle forever. And that's just a sad fact. You can do it and get lucky, but you got to make a decision eventually.
Yeah, you've gone all in. So talk about today now. I mean, like because you've also added another element to your business that you're expanding into. Yeah. But first talk about, so you have been able to leverage your time a little bit by you hired your first employee who's driving for you. Like, is that, what have been some of like the challenge, like the pros and cons of doing that?
So first off, when you first start a hauling business, you think you're doing everything right until somebody tells you that you're not. And there are a lot of hoops to jump through in terms of DOT, making sure all of your paperworks are in, your medical stuff is in, your trailers are actually up to spec, they're getting inspected, your truck's being inspected, you understand axle weight. The amount of truckers who truly do not understand like the 26,000 pound rule is amazing, because so many guys will be like, I'll drive for you. And I'm like, oh, you have a CDL? They're like, no. I'm like, okay, so here it is. That axle on the back of that trailer is 14,000 pounds. The axle on the back of that truck is 14,000 pounds. That is a combined 28,000 pound capability. And they're like, well, but you're not hauling 26,000 pounds. I was like, you're right, but that's not what the law says. It's the capability. And so many people don't understand that, and they get into a business like that and then they get in trouble. Yeah. And as a business owner, I'm not hiring somebody that doesn't have a CDL. So there's so many little things that you have to worry about, and I can focus on those things now while somebody else is spending the time. And the amount of quality phone conversations I can have with people now, instead of me driving a truck, worrying about an invoice, then talking to somebody on the phone like, oh yeah, I can get that to you in like 2 hours. And then I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get somebody a dumpster in 2 hours because I'm still driving back, from somebody else's drop or from the landfill or whatever it is. I can focus on quality conversations where they're like, hey, I'm looking to do this. I need this dumpster. And instead of being like, I got you one, I can be like, well, what are you working on? And they might be like, well, I need to tear down a mobile home. And I'll be like, well, I can do that for you. Yep. Which just goes into the other services we offer, but never would have got that sale if I didn't have that conversation and I just gave them the dumpster instead. So
that was a big step to hire the first employee, because it's like, yeah, it's scary. It's like making it legit. Like, this isn't just a guy you're handing a $20 bill at the end of the day. You know, he's on payroll. There's a lot that goes along with that. It's the worst. There's
payroll.
Insurance.
Nobody understands when everybody talks about like they need to be paid more. People need to be paid more. Nobody understands the overhead a business has for every employee.
Yep.
I was shocked. I didn't understand it. I was like, oh, I can afford to pay this guy this much per hour. And then when I got that first payroll tax payment at the end of the first month, I went, that's 1 month.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. So I'm like, okay, now I need to find a way to make more money.
I know. It's like that pressure. It's like the endless hamster wheel of like, the more successful you get, the bigger it gets, the more you have to almost push.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, because then if it stops, everything stops.
Yeah. But it does, hiring, at least in my experience, like hiring, it does help you. It helps you grow exponentially. Like,
hands down.
Like two people don't equal, I mean, like double of one person, you know, like it's like,
it might be 1.5.
Yeah. It's like, you hire someone, all of a sudden you have so much more leverage that you're able to expand the business, which talk a little bit about that. So the dumpsters are going really well. And now you're breaking into something a little bit different where you're buying some equipment.
Well, yeah. And to your point, before I get into that, with the leverage. So this week, believe it or not, was the busiest week in terms of dumpster turnover, just dumpsters. The most dumpsters I've ever rented out in 1 week, and it's in the slowest traditional month of dumpster rentals, which is fantastic.
Your
but
marketing
also,
is working.
My marketing's definitely working, or at least I'd assume. But it's fantastic, but it's also terrifying to think that, okay, this is the slowest month of the year, and we managed this week. Honestly, the week before that was dead. And that's how crazy the market can be when it comes to dumpsters, whether, holidays, how much it can affect it. But it was still supposed to be the slowest week of the year, and somehow it became my busiest, which is very terrifying, thinking to June, July, August, which are traditionally like really, really busy for dumpsters, what that's going to look like.
Good problems to have, I guess. Right?
Good. Now I just need to solve it.
Yeah.
So
that pressure is good.
It's going to have some pressure. But to your point, equipment, we kind of threw that into the mix. Yeah. So I realize dumpsters are great, but it is one of those things that you only have business for short-term dumpster rentals, at least. Well, when people need the dumpsters. Mm-hmm. So I was like, well, I really don't want to yet get into like weekly dumpster service. It's just not something I'm interested in. The numbers, I've ran them a million times, what I would need to get going to do that. And there's 2 guys here that have a really good market doing that already. So it's kind of one of those things, you know what? I've got good relationships with those people. Let's not step on toes, first off, and let's stay in my lane. But what other lane could I get in that I won't be stepping on any other small guys? I'll just keep saying that. Small guys, toes. And one of the biggest ones was equipment rentals. And everything I do, I like to overlap. I mean, everything. Because if you really look at everything I do, you've got
kind of the flywheel effect, if you know about that. Like,
it's
get into what
No, go ahead. Go with that.
Well, it's like the flywheel effect is like, so if you have a business, for instance, like I own rental property, I have services around that, let's say lawn care. So I own property, I need lawn care. I could easily plug that into my business and create the flywheel effect. Is like the more momentum you get, the faster it goes. Mm-hmm. So, as I grow, I could easily start a lawn care company and I'll instantly have hundreds of yards, not hundreds, but a lot of yards to be mowing on my own property.
Yeah. So one company would be paying for your other company, and then your employees are being paid by you to do the work you already had to do yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we'll get into your business and we can talk a little bit more about it. So, like how you plug it in, how it's helping your dumpster business. Yeah. So
to your point, I already have a lot of guys are always like, why don't you get a hook lift truck? Why don't you get into the big trucks? Mm-hmm. And gosh, the amount of times I have, and because I have a YouTube channel and it's dedicated more to people who have dumpster businesses. Mm-hmm. Most other people in town or otherwise wouldn't really care unless they're just curious. But at the end of the day, every market is different. It is amazing the difference in the market 2 hours from here. Tonnage rates, your competition. There's companies here that run giant dumpsters, mm-hmm. and they have great tonnage rates at the dump. I don't have those. Yeah. So for me to go invest, $120,000 into a big truck with bigger dumpsters, only to not be able to compete on price with another company just seems like a really silly thing to do. So I started to realize it's like, I need another service that I can offer with my equipment that I currently already have a niche with, right? So I had the trailer, I had the truck. I already moved shipping containers with a flatbed trailer I had. And I was like, you know what, I could start moving equipment. So I went out and I bought a piece of equipment, which then I used for my own business, bought attachments for it. And that was the first one was a skidster. That skidster I used a lot for my own business.
Yeah,
so
handy.
Wow, I never knew how much I needed one because I always just really wanted. That's the worst part. I bought that really on want.
You probably bought it on a credit card, I'm assuming.
No, I mean, I might as well have.
Finance it, right?
I did finance it, and at like 2% or something. So when you finance something at 2%, it's like, well, now I can make money with this.
Yeah.
So, and that was the thing. It's like I could make money with this, but I had so many projects lined up that I knew I had to pay people to do because I didn't have the equipment. Not because I couldn't do them, but it's because I didn't have the equipment. And just simply graveling a lot that isn't, level or ready to go is a very expensive, like the amount that just rock cost to gravel a very large lot. So between that and painting, just using a bucket as a lift or
smashing your dumpsters down, right?
Yes,
overfill it.
Overfilled dumpsters, or when we're doing junk removal jobs and you're getting this thing full and then somebody calls you for something and you're like, you know what, I could smash this down really quick over at the shop and then fit what they're asking me to do. So I'm not making 3 trips to the landfill when I could just do it once.
Right. The flywheel effect. It's like you're plugging this into the business and the overall business is now moving faster.
Exactly.
You're growing faster.
Yeah. And then on top of that, we started demoing garages, looking into city codes, figuring out what can I demo without it really being a problem, without, being like a big contractor in town. Like what can I demo? And there are certain things you can take care of outside of or inside of city limits and not need a lot of special permission to do. So I started looking into that, and that was a big focus. So we started demoing mobile homes was a big one.
You've done one for me.
Yep. And then garages, and those things were easy to do. Take literally hours with a skidster. A lot of people would recommend doing it with a Mini. That's what I heard all the time on my YouTube channels. Like, you should use a Mini. That'd be a lot easier. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have one. Yeah. I have a skidster with a grapple bucket. That's as best as it got. And I still could do it in 4 hours and be done and haul it all away, all with the same equipment, and then go home. So I started realizing, I was like, these are all great things. But then some days the skidster would sit. I'm like, well, I could rent that out. So then I started talking to insurance companies. What does it cost me to rent this out? Ran the numbers on what does my insurance cost? What do my monthly payments cost? What do my cost in terms of repairs probably cost even after damage? And I was like, okay, it's not super profitable, but it's better than just sitting there.
It's doing exactly what we were talking about earlier. I was talking to Clayton about me buying an RV camper.
Yeah.
And, it's for my use, but yet I'm going to Airbnb it out just to pay it off because we own a campground. It's kind of the same thing. It's like people are probably looking at you and be like, you're not going to make a ton of money off of, renting this stuff out. That's not necessarily the point. Like, you're going to make a profit, might not be huge, but your equipment's getting paid off for you.
Because it might only get used a couple times a month by somebody else, but that's better than me not needing it for an entire month, it not getting rented out. And then, the next month, I used it for 3 jobs, but for another month, it just sat there and did nothing. Yeah. And the biggest thing that people can't get over, though, when wanting to do a business like that is knowing that you bought this brand new piece of equipment and somebody's going to destroy it.
Isn't it funny how, like you got to be good at marketing, you got to put yourself out there, but also like how much criticism and
everybody knows they can do my job better.
Everyone's so judgmental, and then also like you're just under a microscope at all times. I mean, we put ourselves out there.
Yeah, that blew my mind how much people seem to like care and look into what you're doing and tell you
in a good and bad way, right?
Yes,
like
good and bad.
Like, the talk behind the scenes of like, oh, like he's an idiot, he shouldn't be doing this. Yeah. And whatever,
You know what? At the end of the day, good for them. I don't care. But it is kind of interesting. In a way, though, the more they talk about me or you, the more business we get. Because eventually they talk to somebody who go, oh, he's doing that? I kind of need that done.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. It's very interesting how the reputation, I mean, that's why you got to keep a good reputation because it matters.
Yeah, and people say bad publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity, and I kind of understand that. Somebody could talk trash about you. Yeah. But they talked about you, and then that, even though they talked bad about you, somebody else may talk good about you after, you have that conversation comes up again.
Yeah.
And then somebody else defends you, or, that person that was talking bad to you, that other person goes and looks you actually up and like sees what you're actually into.
Most of the time, people are going to be talking negative unless you really are, being a con man on the side. It's like most of the time it's probably out of like jealousy or
confusion,
or they're confused about the situation. And so it's like, not all bad publicity is actually bad. Like
you're right. And it's amazing how many people just expect somebody to fail, and it's like, oh, they're doing that and they're going to fail. Look at everybody. Elon Musk, Tesla, it's going to fail. SpaceX, it's going to fail. Like very little support for a while. And then everybody investing in Tesla stocks, investing in SpaceX. Oh,
I knew he was going to do it.
Yeah, I knew it's exactly. And a lot of people, there was a song I listened to that it stuck with me, and it was a horrible song, but there was a lyric that said something about your family will be there to, say they always knew you could do it, but at the same time they were never there while you were doing it. So and that's, I'm not saying that's my family. That's not the case.
Yeah, you have a supportive family.
Very supportive family. And it is a little mind blowing how intrusive people can be.
It is. It really is. Talk about now. So I made this YouTube video and blew up, and then I'm like, Clayton, you gotta get on this YouTube game. So you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah. Not in any way. It's not big. It's not a big YouTube channel.
Well, it will be. Trust me. It will be.
One day.
I'm telling you guys, there is this fascination with watching people do things that seem blue collar, and just like also something that seems like relatively unattainable for most. Like it's a hard, starting a dumpster business, tearing down buildings, like all that. It's like not the average person's going to do that.
I don't think I realized that. Like sometimes I'm kind of like, well, just do it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how many people.
It takes guts.
It takes guts, but it comes back to that jump that we keep talking about. Like, first time you told me to go buy a duplex, I'm like, duplex.
Just pull the trigger.
You pull the trigger, and then you can do it over and over and over.
And the first one's the hardest, right? It's like
everything.
Barrier to entry. Once you're in, it gets easier and easier.
Exactly.
But yeah, so you have the YouTube channel. You kind of vlog, like throughout the week what you're working on. Super interesting. I mean, to see. Some
I don't really hold a lot of secrets, honestly. The more and more I think about it, I was like, I tell everybody what I'm doing.
Well,
and in a way, it leads to business.
Marketing.
Yeah, and in a way, it leads to business, even if it's not here. The amount of guys who call me, and it's partially because of your viral video.
Yeah.
And my phone number was on the side of
I know,
that.
Like hilarious because people were actually calling you from around the country.
Every day. I get about 3 calls a day probably from somebody that wants to start a dumpster business, I've had people call me about starting a rock quarry or starting a landfill or they want validation. Mm-hmm. They can do all the research in the world, but they want somebody who's doing it to validate that what they're doing makes sense.
Yeah.
And I have to tell some guys, I can't do this for you.
Right.
I can't, and I'm not an expert. You just watched what I did and it worked. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
So yeah, it's interesting.
It's hard.
Someone like you who has an audience and like you're doing it, you have this credibility, right? And do you ever feel like, the imposter syndrome? Like you have no 100%. Idea what you're really doing, but
100%. Because most of the times, if you watch my videos, okay, so there's different groups of people on YouTube. There's the glorifying group. There's the
glorifying as in like you're doing great, like we love watching your stuff.
No.
Okay.
I'm talking to people making the videos. You've got the glorifying, you've got the oh no group, and then you've got the this is how. So every time you get on YouTube, it's like how to change a tire, how to, that's a huge category of YouTube, right? Then you've got the oh no, and it's like the fails of the week, where somebody's doing something and it goes terribly, terribly wrong. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the glorifying, this is your $1 million idea, I'm doing it, you can do it too, right?
Yep.
I feel like I fall somewhere in between the glorifying and the fails. Because if you watch 90% of the videos I make, it's not like make $1 million doing dumpster rentals, and you won't. I'm just telling you, not unless you're really good.
Unless you're scaling.
I know, unless you're scaling at an insane rate. And I tell guys all the time, I was like, this is not your $1 million idea. This is not it. Whether it's dumpsters, lawn care, power washing, whatever you're trying to find be your side hustle to become your $1 million idea, it's not. It's just a stepping stone to lead into something else. So
I'll push back on that a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
I mean, like, I believe it can be. It depends on, like, if you scaled, if you had 15 employees working for you, you know, you really scale this thing up, it could turn into $1 million business, right?
It could, but that requires acquisitions and other markets, and every market's going to be different.
It's not an
other equipment.
$1 million idea.
No, but most of these guys running the trailers and I don't know a single one of them that's making $1 million running the same type of truck, the same type of trailers.
It's like, the same size you are, yeah.
Exactly. It could be a stepping stone to that, and that's what my point is. It's said in every area. People down in Texas, I hope, are doing a lot better than I am. I mean, that's all there is to it. Their population density, the the amount of construction going down there, like everything. Yeah. So that is part of it. I'm trying to remember where I was going with that, but
we're just talking about the different categories of YouTube.
Oh, YouTube, yeah. So I'm somewhere in between the glorifying what I'm doing, and
showing the bad side as well, right?
I mean, how many videos have you watched where I get a flat tire or something explodes or I knock something over that I shouldn't have, or I'm problems? Like, I feel like a lot of my videos are me problem solving an issue I put myself into. Yeah. And some of it's, more just, here's the job we worked on. It went well. But a lot of it is just like, this sucks. But it's worth the grind for me, probably not for everybody else.
I think what I enjoy about watching with channels like you is it really is like a story. I'm watching someone who started with, this piece of equipment, who's now, talking about like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this, skid steer. Next thing we know, like, you bought it, and then like, hey, I think I'm going to pick this job up. So you're watching this like progression in this story. There's guys that I follow.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that.
Have you ever heard of like Christian Guzman?
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff, like
big fitness guy. Yeah. So like I started watching him probably 10 years ago on YouTube, and like he owns this little podunk gym, like 1,000 square feet. Yeah. And then he buys this bigger warehouse, turns the thing into a gym. Then he starts a clothing brand and an energy drink brand, and it's just so fun to watch that progression.
Well, the other part is that is incredible is how beneficial YouTube is to me as well. And that's not because YouTube is paying me a lot of money. If anything, they are paying me nothing. Let's be very clear about that.
Well, yeah, especially when you contribute, like when you add
how much time that I put into it.
It's a negative by a long shot at this point.
So bad. But the thing is, the conversations I have with people that lead to other ideas blow my mind, and that can just literally be in the comments. You've got your naysayers saying this is dumb, this is a losing, you're not doing that right, and sometimes that actually helps. Sometimes the naysayers will say you loaded that thing wrong. You didn't hook that thing up. DOT is going to get you if you do that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I won't do that next time. Thanks. So it's literally free advice, even though sometimes it's not right, or I can go double check it. But the best part is the conversations, those guys calling me or commenting or Facebook messaging me and telling me, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? Yep. Have you ever thought about doing that? And you're right about the story, because I do expose myself in a lot of my videos where I go, I'm thinking about getting a mini excavator. And it might be 10 videos later, but then all of a sudden it shows up. Yep. And I have a reason for it. It might not be public yet, but I have a reason why I'm going to do something. But when you say those things, it is incredible how many people just kind of come out of the woodwork and give you that free advice, or you have those conversations. And even down to one of the last videos I did was like a remote that a company shipped to me. They said, hey, that remote that you have on that trailer, it's trash. Try this one. Sends me a free remote, and it's just kind of like that unwritten expectation of like, hey, we want you to like show our remote on your channel because people watch it in this industry. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure. I hope it's good, because I'm not going to lie.
I mean, there is so much credibility you can have when you have a presence or a following. Like you're building credibility with every one of your viewers over time, and they're building trust in you. They're learning to like you. And so it's like, people are going to start to come to you with help. Like, it's not just you pouring out to them. Like, eventually it's all going to start coming back to you. And people are going to start sending you stuff. Like,
my free shirt. This thing is fantastic.
Love it.
Says,
Blue Collar Capital Co. Keep blue collar great. Love it.
I want to send them something to say, it should say "Make America Work Again" or something.
Love it.
Since that's like whatever.
So a viewer just sent that to you.
He started a merch company, and it looks like it's doing really well, at least on Instagram. And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to send you some free stuff." So of course, I'll probably wear this in one of my next videos.
Sweet shirt. I really like that.
I was really surprised. It came with like a sticker too. I was just like,
yeah.
The small world effect is amazing when people see you online and then start talking to you. Because the other thing I was like, how are this many people reaching out to me? Because I know I'm rambling here, but the amount of people that reach out to me is insane. And I'm like, why? Because I only have 5,000 followers. At the rate of people calling me every day, I shouldn't be getting this many calls at only 5,000 subs. Like, why are so many people reaching out? And then I started looking into my analytics, the advertising side of you. It's like, why is this happening? And 82% of the returning viewers that I have on my channel are not subscribed.
Yeah.
So I started doing the math. I'm like, oh, the audience is way bigger than I realized. And over time, you see those videos you first post and you're like, oh, they got nobody viewed them. And then you come back, weeks later and they have 10,000 views and you go, oh.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't flop as bad as I thought it did.
Yeah.
And it's surreal because that part really freaked me out when I started to realize how many eyes were on me. And then you start getting the comments, oh man, I didn't realize you were in Quincy. Like, I drive by your shop every day. And it's like, oh, now the locals are watching what I'm doing. Like, that became more real too.
Yeah, that is a weird feeling when people local are like watching your stuff when you're thinking like, oh, it's just a bunch of people from out of town.
Yeah.
So you got to be a little bit careful. You can't share all the trade secrets.
No,
but,
yeah, of course.
So you bought a shop.
What,
a year and a half, a couple years ago? That's been longer than a year and a half ago, hasn't it?
I bought a shop. It's probably been 2 years now since you sold it to me. Well, you were the realtor.
Yeah.
The funny part was when I bought that shop, it was the full intention for it to become what it is now. But
you still have a tenant in half of it, right?
Yeah. And so when I bought it, it had a tenant in the whole thing.
It's big. How many square feet? Do you know?
I don't think I even know off the top of my head.
I'm going to guess
1, 2.
So my little shop is 1,600 square feet, I think.
Yeah.
And yours is got to be
It's got to be 3 times bigger.
At least 3 times.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of that stack side by side plus that back hangar. Because it used to, it has like an old
I want to say yours
airplane
is
hangar section.
6,000 to 8,000 square feet, I want to say.
It's big. And a lot of people are like, don't you wish you were in Quincy? And I'm like, of course I wish I was like in the town that I do 90% of my business in. But if I drive 15 minutes away, I have literally 10x the space because the whole field there too.
Yep, big yard.
Oh my goodness, so much space. And I got it at a fraction of the price that I could get it here in town.
Yeah.
True fraction. And the potential there to just grow that space to be so much more is huge. And sometimes I have a hard decision deciding what I want it to be.
So that's kind of what I want to talk about to finish up. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, do you have a vision for kind of what you want the business to look like? What's going on? Yeah.
It kind of comes back to why a lot of people are like, why haven't you gotten to the bigger dumpsters and everything? And I think it's truly because I just want to become like a rental company with some additional services that we can offer.
Okay. Why rental company?
Well, dumpsters are great. Dumpsters are fantastic, but at the end of the day, and people call them passive or semi-passive because you set them, people rent them, then you have to empty them. But that time to empty and drive and everything is quite a bit. If people start coming to me to rent stuff and it's just pencil to paper for me, that they pick it up and then they bring it back and then I eventually replace that equipment, I feel like that is a lot more passive than me taking the time to drop something off, empty it. But then all that stuff kind of crossing over into other stuff I can use, the amount of people that I can connect with in terms of the different trades that would be renting all these different types of equipment, I think would lead to a lot more. And then again, crossing back into the real estate that I own, it's the connections and relationships I've built with people that tell me that's kind of the direction I want to go in.
Yeah. It's hard to say. You've asked me the same question. I wouldn't know how to answer it. I kind of know the vision, the direction somewhat, but
you just got to take little bites at the vision. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm going to check this box today and check this box, next week. And then eventually it just kind of I could 360 tomorrow or 180 tomorrow, and I could just completely do something else. It's hard telling with me.
Who knows? Yeah, it's just funny. I mean, to recap, like looking back at Clayton, like high school Clayton, kind of this punk kid, always driving around like some, not sports car, but what was
like
it?
A rice burner, just built up. Way too fast, way too loud. Just you never ever would have ever pictured me. The amount of people that said I never would have pictured you in a truck, a diesel, big old, farm boy type style life. And I mean that's all it is. I went from punk to corporate America to blue collar like hick.
Yeah,
overnight
has a YouTube channel.
Who has a YouTube channel? Yeah,
love it.
It's been a journey.
Life, man. It's interesting, to see the progression. But there's more to the story too. I mean, you got rental properties still. You're always looking at real estate, things like that.
Gotta buy a couple a year.
Yeah. So if you guys want to check out Clayton's channel, again, Rolling Ops on YouTube, right?
Yep.
Probably the best place to follow you. Go check him out. His videos are interesting. Other than that, we should probably end this thing. It's been a long one. So
yeah, my bad.
Yeah, we'll roll out.
I can talk.
We'll do a next episode here.
Did you just say we can roll out?
There we go.
Yeah.
We'll roll out. There we go. So we will roll out the second episode. I don't know, in a few months.
Well,
we'll see what.
Let's see if I get anything done.
Yeah. Next time you buy something cool, we'll have to do like a little recap.
All right.
Or any cool real quick before we go, you did just do this marketing ploy that was pretty genius.
That was so much fun.
This is another 5-minute story, but you bought I
didn't even buy that.
Oh, you didn't buy it?
I didn't buy that.
Okay, so what'd you do?
So I just kind of put out like a joking post, and I said, I'm looking for a car. It probably shouldn't run. I'm going to destroy it. I'm going to ruin it. And it's purely for my enjoyment. Don't ask questions. And I was like, let's see if anybody bites on this. I had like 2, if not 3 people tell me, hey, I've got a car. You can have it. And the funny thing was, most of the cars that people reached out to me about, and they're like, oh, here, $500. I'm like, I don't want to really pay for a car I'm going to destroy. And this was for pure enjoyment. This was literally to make a video and honestly to give Keegan, who I really enjoy having as an employee, just give him some fun. We have all this equipment. Let's just go beat up a car that is not repairable.
Yep.
So then we go, and I get this message, and this guy says, hey, I've got a 2007 Scion TC. It's been sitting in my driveway for like a year. It doesn't run. I'd put $1,000 down to say that I probably could have got that thing running for like a couple dollars. But it was the best time spent. For one, Keegan got to have a bunch of fun. I got to destroy something. But then as we destroyed it and then put it up in the dumpster, this thing was sticking like 6 feet out of the top of my dumpster.
You didn't just put it in like horizontally.
Yeah,
you
like
vertically.
Straight up. It looked like it was about to take off like a rocket.
Yeah.
And
which goes back to, again, the whole marketing, like drawing attention to your business.
Such perfect timing, because honestly, at the end of the day, the amount of people that used to drive past that shop and didn't realize that was my shop, they just thought it was either, the previous owner's place, or it was being rented out as storage. So many people would call and ask me what I was using that for because they wanted to buy it. I'm like, no, it truly is occupied. Even though I always have the door shut, like I utilize this space. I'm building something here. But those dumpsters sit at that place all the time and nobody noticed them. They sit literally 6 feet from the road. Nobody ever sees them. The amount of people that saw that dumpster that week that I left it, because I was going to just go scrap that day.
Yeah.
And I turned to Keegan, I went, leave it. Because at first he was going to flip it over, and I was like, stop, leave that thing. That is the most attention drawing thing I can put in front of the shop. Then 1 week from that, I put up a new sign. And Liberty is a smaller town outside of Quincy, for those of you who might not realize. It's 15 minutes away. And oddly enough, even though my dumpsters are out there, I probably only do Liberty a couple times a month in terms of dumpster services or junk services. I have probably half of the people I did this month, and in such a small town, half of the people I did this month were probably out in Liberty. And that was just because they noticed it. They talked about the amount of times that I saw people pulling into the lot on my security cameras, just taking pictures of it. And I was like, keep that thing, keep them going.
Yeah, you need to pull one of those into Quincy and just park it somewhere.
I know. There was part of me, and I was like, I should find a business owner who wouldn't mind this thing just sitting in their parking lot for a week.
Oh man,
maybe the next one.
So yeah, if you want to see videos like that, check it out on his channel. He's got that up. He was posted a few weeks ago.
Yeah, probably one of the last 5 videos.
So yeah, cool guys. All right, we're gonna take off. We're gonna roll out. So
killing me.
Yeah, we'll
haven't heard that one.
Yeah, we'll catch up soon. I'm sure. Yeah, announcements to come. But yeah,
between both of us, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you next time.